Boom, we're back. Welcome everyone. Welcome back to the channel. We're going over a set update today for Obsidian Flames. How is the set doing? How's the box doing? How are the cards doing in this crazy market? So sit back, relax, and welcome to PokeMarketLab. Introducing today's video sponsor, Sleeved TCG. If you are tired of not getting any product at retail prices, look no further. Sleeved TCG is your secret weapon. Join their thriving Discord community where real-time stock alerts meet fellow collectors. Whether you're hunting that elusive Charizard or just starting your collection, Sleeved has your back. Never miss another restock, never overpay on the secondary market, and the best part is it's completely free. Join Sleeved today and level up your Pokemon experience. Link in the description below. All right, let's get into it. Obsidian Flames marching towards 2 years old at this point. We just did an update on Paldea Evolved. It's time for Obsidian Flames here. We got some craziness happening with some of the singles, which we'll get into. The box is doing well, market's crazy, and yeah, let's just get an update on the set and see how it's doing. Should you be dumping your money into Obsidian Flames? Let's start off like we always do with the Pokemon Center ETB. This is the creme de la creme of regular standard release Pokemon Center ETBs from the Scarlet and Violet era. This was not printed heavily. It has probably one of the best, if not the best, Scarlet and Violet era stamped promo. Remember, you get the Pokemon Center, you get the Pokemon Center stamped logo there in the corner of the card. That's the only difference versus the regular ETB promo, but they've done phenomenally well. So this Pokemon Center ETB is sitting at $275. 80% return in the last few months. So it's continued to march up. We've seen quite a bit of sell volume here with an average daily sell rate of 3 of these per day, but that's going to run into a wall here because we only have 13 of these listed on TCG Player. So that price is going to continue to go up, which is going to pull more product into market as people try to, make some profit off of their boxes. Just a phenomenal product. It's got Charmander on the box, good looking box. It's a decent set. And again, that promo is phenomenal. Promo itself is sitting at $151 right now for one of those cards. I urge you. The box is $275. It's going to continue to go up. It will be a $500 Pokemon Center ETB at some point in the future. They did not print many of these. This was before the market for these was hot. I urge you, just hold on to those boxes. I don't know why anyone in this world would crack this box to try to get that single. It's not worth it financially. It's not worth it at all. This is the de facto collector item for all of Scarlet and Violet. And in many cases, this box, this Pokemon Center ETB, has performed better than the Obsidian Flames booster box. And in many cases, the Pokemon Center ETBs outperformed the booster boxes. They certainly did before this crazy bull run. So again, hold on to these. This is a collector's item. They will not, I cannot imagine a world where they go back to the well and try to reprint these. That would be dangerous on their end. So yeah, hold on to these. All right, on to the card, the individual Pokemon Center stamped card. Again, you get the stamped logo there. That's the only difference. This card's sitting at $151, up 78% in the last few months. Only 24 of these listed on TCG Player. Again, I cannot imagine a world where we get more of these singles to market to quench that demand. As far as I'm aware, I believe it is the best performing, maybe Snorlax from 151. I think this is up there, if not the best performing Pokemon Center stamped logo card from the Scarlet and Violet era. So beautiful card. The regular version of this that doesn't have the stamped version we'll go into in a second, doing really well as well. Again, do not crack the boxes to chase this. Buy the single if you absolutely love it. I see no reason that this won't continue to go up given how few of these there are in the market and the resistance to being able to get. This is not just an SIR from a box, right? You're cracking an almost $300 box to get these to market. No one is going to do that. So either the single is going to continue to rise up and push up against the booster box price, right, which will cause additional cracking, or this is just going to, you're just not going to get any more of these to the market. All right, on to the regular ETB, which is doing crazy as well. Obsidian Flames is an okay set, and we'll get into that in a second. We'll look at the cards, but it's not a blockbuster. So I don't know if this is a common part of this is the fact that regular Charmander promo card here is without the logo is $23 in and of itself, right? Which is almost half of the MSRP cost of an Elite Trainer box. And remember, this set is getting up there in age. It is 18 months old. That doesn't mean it's not reprintable or anything like that. I do think the Elite Trainer box, out of all the items we're seeing here, is absolutely in the running for a reprint. There's no question. We've already had booster box reprints. They could easily go back and have done this in the past. We were still getting reprints for Sword and Shield ETBs up until not long ago. So they could go back at any period of time and reprint this Elite Trainer box. Okay, we'll talk about reprint risk in a bit here, but to just be very careful, I would not chase. I don't think Obsidian Flames ETBs are worth chasing at $90 a pop. I think that's a bit much. I think the reprint risk is there. We've talked about this before. We do not know how much bandwidth they really have to go back this far into Scarlet and Violet and do reprints, given there's so much within the last 6 to 8 months of releases that needs reprints. We really just don't know. They could be working on a reprint already, which is, so to me, $90, that's a bit rich for me. That's more than Sword and Shield boxes that are 4 or 5 years old from an ETB standpoint, right? We have some undervalued Sword and Shield boxes compared to this. So why the increase here? Is it just that it's Scarlet and Violet? It's old, but I wouldn't even call it old. It's not that old. It's kind of midlife at this point. The promo is $23. That's certainly part of it. It's a hot promo. One thing to keep in mind too, because of when you have a hot promo like that, what does that cause? What does that do to the population of sealed ETBs? It causes it to go down, right? There's a reason to crack it because there's demand. You got, if you liquidate the box, it's $23 promo plus whatever you're getting for packs and whatever you might pull from those packs, right? So there's certainly an impetus to crack the boxes for sure, which again keeps that sealed population down, which is good in the long run for ETB holders. There's only 70 ETBs listed on TCG Player, which is pretty low for an elite trainer, for any elite trainer box. I would just be very cautious if you're an investor or even a collector. Long term, there is a risk of reprints here, and $90 for an Obsidian Flames elite trainer box is a little rich for me. So again, $92 box, 107% return in the last 3 months. They're doing extremely well. I just want to throw some booster box comps out here before we look at the booster box. So Paldea, we did an update recently sitting at $207. All right, on to the creme de la creme. We have the booster box. This is sitting at $192, pretty expensive right now. 54% return in the last few months. Again, I mentioned both the Pokemon Center ETB as well as the regular ETB are outperforming the booster box on a 3-month basis here. 168 boxes listed. Remember, we did get a reprint on booster boxes from Obsidian Flames. It was small. It's expensive. I've said this before, that when we get reprints through distribution again, especially for booster boxes, right? Booster boxes don't typically go through the normal big box sales channels. The booster box price distribution does not release it back to the market at the regular price. They up the price. They take advantage of whatever secondary market price there is. Not the same price, but they certainly up the price. So again, you don't get boxes back in the market at $100 a pop to make this delta between the secondary market price and what the LGS stores get, right? So their margins aren't necessarily the same. So there's not pressure to dump them into market at really cheap prices. So this has held up really well. We're going to look into a second here and see, and actually do some value comparisons and see, is it worth it for that price? It's a decent set. It's an okay set, but I think the price increase that we've seen here is a little much. I think there's either a lot of other boxes that are undervalued, or this is overvalued at this point. So with that, let's look into that comparison here from a box standpoint. So these are booster box prices. You still see Paldea evolved here over on the left-hand side, sitting at 207, Obsidian again at 191, Scarlet and Violet base at 157, and Paradox at 165. So Paldea is absolutely a better set. And so why is Obsidian pushing up against or close to that Paldea evolved price, as well as Paradox over there, which I think is undervalued at this point? I think is probably the better buy still out of all of these. It's more of a reprint risk for sure from a booster box standpoint. But I think on a card-to-card basis, there's definitely more to love in Paradox. Now let's look at another number I like to look at is total set value. So again, that's all cards in set, just added up to an entire total. So you can see really just the value that could be in that set if you were to open these boxes. So again, booster boxes are kind of like an ETF or a mutual fund. It's a list. It's a bubble of a whole bunch of different cards and their values associated with that box, right? So you're kind of getting exposure to all of those cards and their performance within that box. So Paldea sitting at $1,200, Obsidian sitting at a fraction at $365, Scarlet and Violet base at $615, and Paradox at $1,028. So what we're going to look at now, we're going to actually do some just quick math here. So you take this booster box, this total value in the booster box, so again, it's not what you're expecting to get out of the booster box. It's just the entire set of cards, right? So if we take that full number and divide it by the booster box costs, we get a ratio. And this is kind of, I call it a value ratio. And so the higher, the better here. And so you can see Paldea at 5.8, Obsidian really hurting here at 1.9, Scarlet at 3.0, and Paradox at 6.2. So this really gives us a quick way to kind of objectively say, is there value in the set that you're buying here? So, which should in some way, shape, or form inform the booster box price on the secondary market. So what we can see here is that Obsidian, I think, is overvalued at this point. I can say I think Scarlet, again, as well as maybe is a little better. I think Paradox is undervalued, and I think Paldea is probably right where it needs to be. So I think it's the booster box price on Obsidian Flames is a little expensive for what it is. It's not the only thing that goes into it, right? Age matters. How old the product is matters. How people feel about the product matters. How the recent card performance matters, which we're going to look at as well. All right, on to set value comparisons. So we're going to look at, this is the top 20 cards from Scarlet and Violet base, Paldea Evolved, Obsidian Flames, and Paradox Rift, all compared. Okay, so the vertical line is going to be the the card cost, sorry, right, the secondary market cost, and then again, this is comparison. That's that top spot. So spot 1 all the way on the left is the top card from that specific set. So Paldea Evolved is going to be the Magikarp, Obsidian Flames is going to be the Charizard, and so on. So yeah, we can see here Paldea Evolved, obviously, coming in strong with that Magikarp, which is adding a ton of value to that total value of cards in the set line that I was talking about. So what we're looking for here is to see who the winner is, and obviously in a lot of the spots, that's still Paldea Evolved, and Obsidian Flames in green there really still struggling against Paldea Evolved as well as Paradox Rift. So again, is that, the booster box I think is a little expensive for what it is. I know I'm personally not looking to pick any more up at that price. I have a bunch of them, and I think that's a little, I would rather buy, I actually made some purchases today on some Paradox Rift at about 150, which I think is a much, much better deal. I think there's just a better gallery of cards in that set. All right, now we're going to look at the top 6 cards from that set and see how they're performing. Again, just as, if you're interested in singles, and again, these singles do kind of inform the box price in some way, shape, or form. So Charizard on the left-hand side there, sitting at $68, 30% return in the last few months, performing pretty well. Quite a bit of sell volume here. One thing we're going to talk about too is the pull rates on the set are quite easy. And what that means from an SIR standpoint is the rarity that we would typically see from an SIR and the lack of population we would see in the market for an SIR is not the case. We're seeing a lot more SIRs hit the market, right? And what happens when we get more supply, and the supply and demand equation is we see depressed pricing. And we see cards that aren't able to perform necessarily as well as they would otherwise with worse pull rates. We don't want terrible pull rates, but this pendulum is probably too far to the good pull rate side. And you can see that here. You got 200. It's selling really well. Average of 12 copies per day. Still 192 copies listed there. And again, that's all pull rates. And it's really, again, it just means that the supply side is a little too heavy. It doesn't mean it's a bad card necessarily. We're seeing the demand there. Look at Ninetales sitting at $33 a card, 139% return in the last few months. Average daily sell rate of 18 per day is still 179 on the market. So we're seeing really strong demand. It's just the supply side. The supply hasn't been eaten up yet. But with the booster boxes, approaching $200, that does mean that we're not likely to see a lot of people cracking and putting singles into market. So I think the long-term performance of the set, I don't think it's going to hit 1,000 in terms of total set value anytime soon, but we're certainly seeing some improvement, which is good. Cleffa on the right-hand side there, $30 card, monster 256% return in the last few months. Gorgeous, gorgeous card. One of my favorites from the set. Almost could have been in 151, right? That same kind of feel. selling almost 20 per day. Look at that beautiful sell volume here with a recent spike. Beautiful chart. Actually, this one finally starting to dry up with less than 100 available. So that price, we're seeing some really good trends in pricing, which is, again, going to long-term inform and change that total value, which is going to mean a better performing box at some point here. But I think it just needs to. I think again, it's overvalued. The box itself is overvalued at this point. I think there might be some stagnation there, but again, not the only thing that informs booster box pricing. All right, on to the next three. This first one here is weird. So this is Houndor from Obsidian Flames here. It's sitting at $27, up almost 1,000% in the last few months. Just look at that sell volume. In a couple of days, over 100 individual copies, less than 100 copies available on TCG Player, selling at an average of 20 per day. What is driving that? I tried to do some research and couldn't find a smoking gun, so to speak. If you know in the comments, leave a comment below. I have no idea what's going on with this card or why. It's not a particularly good card in my opinion, but obviously there's someone out there who likes it, or more than one person, I would say. Up next, Charizard, 14% up in the last few months, $26 card. This is a hyper rare here. Quite a few copies available on TCG Player. Not super growth, not super sell-through rate. And then on the right-hand side, this was absolutely a sleeper in Obsidian Flames. I still think this is a really, really cool card. One of my favorites. Sizor at $17, 300% return in the last 3 months, selling on average about 20 per day. So very, very, very strong sales in these top 6 cards. Some honorable mentions. Again, you got to get past those first few cards of value to really find the stuff where, really find where the magic is. I've talked about the Gloom on the left-hand side. It's still sitting about $15, up 91% in the last few months. An absolute sleeper of a card. Do not keep sleeping on this. It's a beautiful card. Yes, it's up in value, but it's still, I can tell you, I have a few of these in person. It's a beautiful card in person. You want one in your collection. It does not do it justice. The screenshot here does not do it justice. Pick one up. The Pidgeot as well. The foiling on this card, it's almost like a spec foiling. Very, very cool card. I like the kind of cartoon feel to it with that heavy line art there. It's a $16, up 27% in the last few months. Palafin here. $5 card, still extremely cheap. Very cool card. We just had a Palafin, one of the best Palafins here in Prismatic. This is up 234% in the last few months. And Belly Bolt on the right-hand side. We've got a bunch of Belly Bolts coming up in Journey Together. So I think that's probably what's pushing this up. Still a cheap card, cute card, $8, up almost 500% in the last 3 months. So again, really, really strong singles action here, really strong sell-through. There's a ton of inventory in the system to work through before we can really see some really substantial price gains here. This is never going to be an expensive set from a card value standpoint, but it does have some room to grow. All right. One interesting thing I wanted to, just the card value, the amount of percent of increase in the top 20 cards seems to be pretty substantial to me. It seems to be out of the ordinary. So I just wanted to chart this is the top 20 cards from the set of value and their percentage returns from the last 3 months. So again, you see that Houndor there in 4th place. So that's 900%. I didn't order these by increase. I probably should have, but I just wanted to show just kind of graphically what that increase in price, that volume looked like. So again, very strong sales, certainly good price action. And I think once we get through some of these big walls of singles here, you're going to see some even further growth. And again, this is just hindered by the fact that pull rates meant there's a lot of copies in the population. But again, we have a $200 box now, which is going to stop a lot of crackers from cracking that box. So again, the box price is going to keep fighting with the total value of cards in the set. Right now, it's still, we saw that value scale, that value ratio. It still does not make sense to open boxes to chase any of these singles. There's just not enough money. Even the highest chase card, there's just not enough money there to get your value back from what you put into it. So again, I think there's some really high resistance to getting more singles in the market. So I think the drying up of singles is certainly demand. There's certainly good cards. I think that'll help this set in the long run. All right, so we're at the end of this set update here. Hopefully enjoyed it. You know, the last thing we do here, we do a set rating. I'm going to give this a B minus. This kind of could straddle between a B minus and a C plus for me. Not as many, you know, the depth of really good cards does not go as deep as something like a Paradox Rift. I don't think it's quite at that level. That's why I kind of call this a C plus, B minus. Definitely some good cards, definitely some undervalued cards. But again, it just doesn't have as large a gallery as some of these other sets. It kind of drops off pretty quickly. The next thing we always talk about at the end here is reprint risk. So I think the reprint risk in the booster box, I think, is pretty low. We are approaching 2 years. That doesn't necessarily mean they couldn't go back and do it, but we've already had a booster box reprint. So that is a positive. I would think if they went back to reprint Obsidian Flames, I don't think it would be the booster box, but I do think the ETB is a risk. So again, like I said before, if you're buying a $90 ETB, that's very expensive. That's a little bit chasey to me. That's kind of like a little bit too much FOMO for me. I think that's a little bit high of a price for a product that is a reprint risk. Now, if I may be proven wrong, if the market, you know, if the reprints happen and we see they're happening closer to the current boxes, which there are a lot of that need reprinting, I've said this before, then I think that's probably an actual signal to the market at that point for that ETB to go up higher. But the per pack price for $90, you know, $90 for, I think it was 10 packs. It's actually more expensive, I think, on the ETB, and it's really driven by that promo. The per pack price is more expensive there versus the booster box. That promo adds a lot of spice to that ETB right now. And the last thing, price target on this box, you know, I probably would have held it at about 200. I think that's probably where it should settle for a long period of time, just because, again, the value of the cards in the box just aren't there. You don't get that Charizard promo in the box. So you're really left with whatever else you could potentially pull, and there's just not a lot there. So I think the price of the box right now is a little overflated. I think, again, for a little bit more, you can get Paldea, which is definitely a better set. So, you know, do what you want with your money, but I think that's a little bit much for me. I would definitely, it's going to be hard. You know, the other question is how do you get exposure to the set? That's what's becoming hard. If you don't have exposure to the set, you are getting priced out at this point. So either you try to find a deal on some ETBs, booster bundles, all those things are getting harder and harder to get for these earlier sets. They're getting old, and they're not getting old. They're getting older. And as such, again, normally they wouldn't be considered old or unobtainable, and these prices wouldn't typically spike. But again, the amount of reprints that have to happen on other sets right now, it means that as we go further down, you know, the road in terms of time, the reprint risk is starting to go away. And again, once we start seeing some more modern reprints from Scarlet and Violet, that could signal the market to go even further here. So that's our video for today. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you like what we're doing, again, please give us turn on notifications, and of course, we really appreciate your subscription if you love what we're doing. That's it for today. PokeMarketLab out.